SCD Keys sells games, gift cards, and even operating systems at discounted prices. You can get classic games such as Batman Arkham Origins for $5.28 and Lego Batman for $3.70, and you can even get more recent titles such as Shadow of the Tomb Raider. And I was curious at first whether or not they would keep up to date, in particular with the latest games, so I searched for some new and upcoming titles that are coming out this month and found that they have the recently released Red Dead Redemption 2, and they even have Battlefield 5. Not my personal pick for obvious reasons, but this just goes to show that they regularly update their game selection with the latest titles. To purchase any one of these, you simply find whichever game you fancy, add it to your basket, use the provided discount code that is in the video description, and confirm your order. That's it. So if you like what you've heard, then feel free to browse around their website and choose whichever product you fancy, and of course, use that discount code that is in the video description. Alright, Avengers Infinity War has been out for a while now, and I said in my Versus video that I didn't want to watch Ant-Man and the Wasp when it came out because I wanted to keep Infinity War's amazing and huge ending in my mind for a while before watching a smaller Marvel film. Well, it's been long enough, and now I am more than willing to watch Ant-Man and the Wasp, and I literally just finished watching it, so here are my quick thoughts. So we'll start with the things I liked. The first thing is Hope. She was competent in the first movie, but in this one, she is a straight up badass, both as herself and the Wasp. And on top of that, she's a more serious character, so much so that I would rather have the movie be about her as opposed to Ant-Man because he is just useless and causes a lot of trouble. That is, until you watch the two of them team up and fight Ghost together in the climax. And in general, this whole climax fight made me realize that Ant-Man is actually a useful character and is pretty competent in his own right. It's just that in the first 3/4 of the movie, he is treated as the comic relief. A comic relief amongst other comic reliefs. And I think that is just demeaning because when push comes to shove, he is not that useless. He is actually a useful asset to the team. And heck, we even saw this in Civil War. So Marvel really need to give him something to do when he's not fighting, because he's not a likable or charming character when he's goofing around. He's just a nuisance. And quite honestly, it doesn't help the romance the movie is trying to give him with Hope either. So although I didn't like him at first, I ultimately ended up liking his character again by the end of the movie. And I really liked how the Accords from Civil War have not only affected Scott, but it has also affected Hank and Hope. And because of that, the two are now in hiding because Scott used the suit to fight without their permission, and because they owned it, the FBI are after them for being an accessory. That was something I never thought about when Ant-Man joined the fight in Civil War. I honestly thought he was allowed to use the suit whenever he pleased, but it turns out he wasn't. And that decision now has ramifications. So that little connection I thought was smart. I also liked how the villains actually had a moral ground and how Lawrence Fishburne's character here, I can't remember his name, orders Ghost to not go after Scott's kid. That was good. Although, if you look at these as actual villains, then they will suck. Especially after we got Thanos. Instead, these characters are portrayed as people with personal goals who went too far to accomplish them. You don't agree with them, but you see why they did what they did. And as for the action in this movie, anytime Wasp was in on the action, it was great. She would flip around and kick people while simultaneously finding key moments to use her resizing abilities, and it was a lot of fun. The rest of the action was just nothing special though. That is, until the ending. The entire action scene in the end was really good. If only the rest of the movie had the same amount of passion and energy that went into these last 15 minutes, because let me tell you, everything prior to the climax was just childish and so uninteresting. Now the movie isn't the worst comic book movie or anything, but there were several times where I was comparing its stupidity to the Tim Story Fantastic Four films. I honestly don't know how they could do this after they really doubled down on it in Infinity War, but that Marvel humor which I hate so much is back. And it's back with a vengeance. There are serious moments in this movie, but, like I said, Marvel seem to worry when they have a serious moment, so they just throw a joke into the scene in an attempt to lighten up the tone, even though the scene was doing just fine as it was. Joke after joke after joke in every freaking scene. Even Michael Pena, who I thought was passable and a little funny in the first movie, was just unbearable in this. There were only 2 jokes that made me smile, and that was when Michael Pena got back into his dubbing stories again, and the one that got the biggest laugh out of me was the joke where Hank says to Scott,
I destroyed it, I swear.
I can't believe you destroyed my suit. I mean, that was my life's work.
What was I supposed to do?
You were supposed to not take my suit.
I'm sorry, Hank. I'm sorry I took the suit.
So if we had an old suit, we might be able to track down the lab?
Yes, but we don't.
What if we did?
Oh my god. You didn't destroy the suit.
What?
Well, it was your life's work, Hank. I couldn't destroy that.
Now that was funny. It's a joke that is motivated by contradiction, and it's a contradiction that makes sense as it's coming from an emotional and personal place. But then you get jokes like this.
What's up? You remember that beloved commercial? What's up?
And this.
What does the FBI even stand for? Forever bothering individuals?
And this.
I'll be seeing you again.
Where will you be seeing me again?
Like, in general, I'll see, like, the next time you do something bad, I'll be there to catch you.
You'll be watching in that room. I thought you were inviting me somewhere.
Why would I do that?
That's what I was wondering. Why would you do that?
Like a party or like dinner or something?
I don't know. I thought you were...
Seriously, Marvel, if you want to include humor in your movies, then that's perfectly fine. Just make sure the humor is good or don't use it at all. As is, the jokes and overly goofy tone is what ruined a lot of this movie for me. I just couldn't take it seriously in any way whatsoever, and the way this film executed its storytelling was so kindergarten. The first scene in the movie is a perfect example of this. Hank tells Hope the story of how her mother died, and if this was played out like a fully realized scene, and then, as it was about to finish, we heard the end of Hank's narration, then that would have been a far more immersive, cinematic, and even heartfelt way of telling the story, and a great opening scene to start the movie off. Instead, it's told to us from beginning to end like a kid's bedtime story, even though we could have been told the story visually with a small concluding narration to tie in the past story with the present. But instead of immersing you into the scene, it just tells you in a quick, lazy, and uninspired way. And quite honestly, it felt like the movie was talking down to us as if we are little children. So I didn't like the opening setup at all. Coming from Avengers Infinity War, the downgrade of quality with the directing and even the acting is really noticeable in this movie. Is it as good as the first movie? No, it's not. I gave the first movie a 7 out of 10 as it was a good time, and although it had too much humor, there were times when it knew when to stop. The second movie, however, had no idea when to stop, and on the whole, it was a disappointment and felt like a lackluster Marvel movie, and it gets an average 5 out of 10. I feel a little guilty for giving it a 5 because I feel like a below average 4 would be more appropriate, but the scenes that were good were really good, and that's why it gets the extra point. And that mid-credit scene was great too. I cannot wait for Avengers 4. So stay tuned everyone, as I am hard at work on my Venom vs Spider-Man 3 video, and it will be released later this week. Thank you so much as always for watching, and I will catch all of you next time. Take care.